And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Apparently most deck-building games that are coming out, based on the success of Dominion, have to be fantasy-themed. Well, or are they? But most of them are, and this one's no exception. Ascension Chronicle of the God Slayer. What does all that mean? Well, the short answer is, even if you want to read the exciting story in the beginning page, basically, you buy good guys to fight on your side, and you beat up on these bad guys. It's a very simple deck-building game. There's strategy in it, but there's a lot less strategy than there is tactics. What to do here, right now. The game has some text on the cards, but in the long run, it's a very simple game, and I think maybe that will hurt it for some people, while others might enjoy the simplicity. Here's the board for the game, although after reading the rules, I'm pretty sure this game was designed with no board in mind, that you just put the cards out like this. But hey, we'll always take a board when we can get it. At the beginning of the game, if you've not played before, you're going to get several apprentice cards and several militia cards. These cards will be shuffled together into a deck. This is your own personal deck. At the beginning of each round, you will draw 5 cards from this deck. You will then use these cards to do things on your turn. Basically, cards give you 2 different currencies. They'll give you currency here in runes, which is basically just money, and they give you cards in power, which allows you to fight. Now, your basic cards give you +1 rune or +1 power. That's all you have. But as the game progresses, you'll get cards that give you more than that. So let's say, for example, in this I have 1 power. That will let me kill anything that's 1 or less power on the board. There is no such thing, so I cannot use that. But I can buy something with these 4. Now here are my options. I may buy either of these 2 cards over here on the side. Let's take a closer look at these. These are 2, if you see these stacks of cards, they're all the same. We have Mystics and Heavy Infantry. The Heavy Infantry cost 2, the Mystics cost 3. You can buy those, and you can see Mystics are useful because they give you 2 runes, and Heavy Infantry gives you 2 fighting power. They're much better than your basic cards. So I can buy them. Or I can buy one of these 6 random cards that is in the middle of the table. For example, this one here costs 6, and it's a hero that, as the game progresses, will give you, when you play this card, you'll get 4 fighting. Or over here, this one gives me 2 fighting and lets me banish a card. Banish a card means basically get rid of it from the game. Or here, this guy lets me get 2 fighting. Over here, this guy gives me 2, and if I build a construct, it costs 1 less. So there's different cards, and they belong to different factions, which might mean something over the course of the game. Whatever cards you buy, you'll take that and all the cards in your hand, whether you use them or not, and discard everything, drawing new cards to start for your next hand. And you'll continue to do that until you run out of cards. Then you'll shuffle all the cards that you've bought, put them into your deck, and draw from them. Now, I said there was 2 times the currency here. That Tortured Soul, which I accidentally grabbed there. To get that one you don't buy, you just have to have enough power. When you defeat it, it doesn't go into your deck. Instead, it gives you a reward, which here you can see gives you 1 victory point and lets you draw a card. The monster is then placed on the side of the board in the void. Anytime you buy a card or defeat a monster, a new card comes out. In fact, you can buy multiple cards per turn. These little gems you see in the back, those are victory points. White ones are worth 1. Red ones are worth 5. You start with a certain amount of those over the course of the game. And when that amount runs out, the game is over. At the end of the game, you'll count up the victory points that you get for these. And each card is also worth a certain amount of victory points on it that you can get at the end of the game. A few other things. There are some cards like this one over here, which is called a construct. When you play these cards in front of you, see this one says once per turn gives you 1 fighting power, and once per turn you can spend $4 to gain a point. When you play these cards, they stay in front of you, and they stay in front of you until some other player plays a card that makes them go away. So the more constructs you have in play, the more power you have each turn. It's a card that stays in front of you. There's also this little weak guy over here called the Cultist. He's 2 power, and he gives you a victory point when you beat him. He never goes away. In fact, you can beat him multiple times per turn. He's just there to get beat upon. So that's basically the game. Beat monsters, add cards to your deck. There's cards, once you figure them out, they'll give you different combos. You might concentrate on fighting to get the points from that. You might concentrate on money to buy cards that are worth point. It's all up to you. You can mix and match, and it's pretty fun. Okay, what do I like? I like the fact that the cards are constantly changing in the middle. Having a single deck with cards that you're pulling from it means you can add more expansions to it and get all kinds of neat combinations as the game comes up. I suppose even with expansions in the future, you'll be able to take some cards out to get kind of a deck that's set the way you want it to be. I don't know. That's just speculation. I like the fact that the victory points are not part of the deck. They're outside. I mean, some of the cards are worth victory points, but this is a neat way, and it's a game-ending timer. Reminds me a bit of Race for the Galaxy that way. And I like the fact that there's two different currencies in the game, fighting and money. It's pretty neat. The construct idea, putting those in front of you, there's some pretty neat combos you can pull off. I like that a lot. Now, what don't I like? This game is very difficult to plan for the future. Now, I know people will pop up and say, no, you really can. Yeah, kind of. But you have no idea what cards are going to come next out of the deck. And so you might buy a construct hoping to get another construct, and it never shows up. And when it does, someone else buys it. That's going to bother some people. It's very tactical, movement to movement, rather than a strategy for the whole game. Another thing I dislike about the game, absolutely hate, is the artwork. The theme is kind of dark. My daughter liked the game. She's 10. She liked playing the game, but I felt very uncomfortable just because it was such dark fantasy. And taking that aside, and taking aside the fact that I'm not an artist myself, this is just some of the worst artwork I've ever seen in a game. Some of it looks unfinished, and I guess that's the style they were going for, but, I suppose. Some people said, hey, it's a pretty neat style. They liked it, but this is definitely a love it or hate it style artwork. For people who like Dominion, this is a different bird. It's lighter, because Dominion is easier on the onset. It's easier to read the cards for Dominion, but to sit there and think which decks you're going to buy, that's more difficult. This is much simpler. You have 6 cards. Which one are you going to buy? And being able to buy multiple cards per turn helps out a lot too. Should you get it? I don't know. I like it. For now, I'm going to keep it, but I'm telling you, if the market for these constructible deck games continues, this one could easily be pushed aside because I'm not seeing too many new things it brings to the table other than the constructs. That's a good idea. So for now, I like it. It's great. It's nowhere near the greatness of Dominion, but it's a decent enough entry in the market this year. It may be one that you need to try before you buy.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.